So I started off with a brief on my location. My location was in town. It was around the Combined Court, the Magistrate Court. We've got the Town Hall, bit of an infirmary and the Methodist Church here. From looking at the map, I was quite interested in the kind of routes around it, the kind of sense of direction and the roads. Then I just took loads of photos, did loads of different sketches, some from photos, some from being in situ, so some continuous line drawings. And I was really interested, as you can see here, taking away the kind of negative spaces around these buildings. That also led me to be interested in stuff that you wouldn't typically look at, so the rubbish or the cups just on the side where people would sit, and I experimented with taking away their negative space as well. A group tutorial, and Dave showed me Design Republic's Purple project, which is basically like mine, blocking out areas in my images and then fill them with the colour purple. So I'm going to think about how I could fill my spaces a bit differently. I used different images, textures and patterns to do this. I think this is the most effective because the pattern still alludes to what is hidden behind the shape and is the most striking against the surroundings in the photograph. The colour in these photos now interested me as well as the outlining shapes of the buildings. However, my favourite discovery were the range of shadows. Shape had been the idea behind most of my work so far, and these shadows were the most interesting shapes I've seen yet, as I hadn't expected to find them. When collaging my images to print, I found that merging these shadows created even better shapes, so I decided to experiment with this idea more. These photos into Photoshop and left the shapes of the shadows. These are really funky and really excited me, but again, I didn't find a way to develop them with the other work I created in this project. When I did my first sort of drawings, first time I went to my location, I didn't really consider the size or the type of paper that I was drawing on. I wanted to experiment with that more. I decided to do it on a till roll because I was going to represent what I saw on my journey, on my walk around my location. So I thought the kind of length and the rolling out of it would show the kind of sense of time and what I saw as I went on. I was really happy and really pleased with how the last till roll turned out with the black fine liner and biro. So I wanted to experiment more with media and the marks that I was making. So I decided to use pro markers. I used pro markers on the same paper, but as you can see, the colours didn't really come out the greatest, so I stopped there. So it just wasn't really working. I continued to experiment more with media, even though the pro markers didn't work. I decided to experiment with crayon and the marks that the crayon would make. I used a different paper. I used a dull paper, one that wasn't shiny, so that the crayon would stay on there. I was really happy with the marks these made. I drew the same thing that was on this roll, because I think I'm going to combine these, overlay them and see how the two marks work together. Scanned in the illustrations on the till rolls in part. While I like these, they're very flat and lacking in textures I mentioned, which would make them seem more alive. These are the scanned crayon drawings. These are totally different in aspects of colour, texture and marks. The crayon versions are more lively but less accurate, as drawing with a crayon was more restricting. These are the combination of the fine line and crayon illustrations. I overlaid the two together on Photoshop. I think these work so much better together, as both the accuracy and textures are there. I also enjoy how, even though both are the same subjects, they don't align due to the nature of the medium and how the crayon was much harder to keep accurate. I created these two simple animations. I decided to do these because I wanted to portray the movement of me walking around and what I saw on my journey. I decided that my last animation still needed a bit of improvement. It still needed something else. So I decided to incorporate my illustrations that I did in the kind of flip book. I just overlaid loads of different ones and save them all as different images and then overlay. This was the fourth animation I created with the separate illustrations popping up at the front. I tried to create like a certain kind of story with the way they were placed, the way people were looking at each other, how they were overlaid. I think it really works. I think that the eye is kind of led around the screen a bit more. I think the sounds work quite well. They create stories in themselves. I think if I would have had more time, I would have maybe liked to create the stories with the illustrations to match the sounds in the background, but I still think they work really well, create a kind of atmosphere of what was going on. I'm really enjoying how these are looking, the separate like frames from the animation together when they're printed out in this kind of comic book kind of arrangement form. Really enjoying it, really liking all the different layers, like the midground, the foreground, background, all the different marks, different colours, different styles. And I just happened to print this on the Riso and I think they're so cool. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really liking, especially when it's all in one colour, all the different marks when they come together. I think it makes it look really three-dimensional, loads of depth. And I think if I had more time, if it wasn't the end of the project, I would maybe think about making it into a book, or kind of spine down the middle just makes me think of that and all the different columns. Yeah, I just think it would be really cool and I've really enjoyed it.